Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we decrease tomorrow's divorce rate today by teaching singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I am your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful, lovely co-host, Michelle Larkin.
Hey,
Michelle,
world. Hey, world. We back.
All right. So this topic has been a topic that people have been waiting for. I think I've been waiting for. I kind of alluded to it for a minute. For those who haven't read yet,
I'm not waiting.
the topic of discussion is sex. We are going to be talking about sex today, ladies and gentlemen. And before we start, let's what do I want to do before we start? First of all,
Let's pray.
let's he said let us pray.
Let's pray. I'm just kidding.
This clearly is not going to be the only show on sex, but there's definitely some foundational things that need to be discussed, understood, brought up about sex that we are going to be addressing on tonight. I will try my best to be as PG-13-ish as possible, but what I won't do is, knowing how much of a problem this is in marriages and relationships, censor it to where I am not being a voice to persons who really are having an issue with this particular topic or situation. So if it gets to the point where you feel I'm too vivid, then just turn it off. But again,
Disclaimer noted. Disclaimer. Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah, because I really, this is what this platform is for. There's not going to be any topics that are not going to be addressed when it comes to love. And you cannot talk about love and not address sex or think that you're going to have a healthy marriage or relationship without talking about and resolving issues with sex. So again, I'll try to be as PG-13 or whatever you want to call it as possible, but not at the expense of me liberating someone from an issue or bondage when it comes to this particular topic in their respective relationships. So that's my disclaimer, if there is one. But another thing too is, again, it's the mental aspect of it, and so that we, as I stated in the intro, this is so that we're experiencing love, and in this case, successful love making on purpose, not by chance, not every once in a while, not haphazardly. So this is what the topic is going to be. Before we dive in, Michelle, if you got anything going on, before we go ahead deep in this topic, please share. Let people know where you're going to be at or what you're going to be doing, because we're about to go in.
You're funny. Thank you for sharing that I do have a life. But I am doing a topic. I'm speaking at a women's tea this weekend. If you follow me on Facebook, there's an announcement out there, and the topic is the power of the pearl. Also doing a Queen's Moves weekend with some ladies this weekend, where we are going to do the Queen's Moves series or a lesson from that, which is on my UB Connections YouTube page. And I am launching a soft skills training called Catapult, and that will be on my Facebook and on my Instagram and everything soon. But this is all because I got to know enough love about myself that I could be comfortable putting myself on display. Because to be honest, you got to like yourself before you let everybody else start judging and commenting. So I am excited about those things. It's an amazing chapter in my life, and I'm excited to do that. But you can follow me on Yumi Connections on Instagram, Yumi Connections on Facebook, and Yumi Connections on YouTube.
That's a very powerful statement. You got to like yourself before you start sharing
Oh, this
yourself.
has been a journey.
Oh yeah. And what's interesting about it is transparency is such a liberating place to be in your life. But if you're being transparent and you're not at a place where you love yourself, it's a very, very uh, touchy and sensitive place to be, because if you're seeking validation from external persons or sources, then their responses to your transparency could really, really, I guess, for lack of a better term, ruin you or hurt your feelings or things of that nature.
It could, and I was feeling that as I was tiptoeing out into the public, and so I kept coming back. And that segues to the subject, because what is more transparent and vulnerable and open than and intimate than sex? Yes, public speaking is extraordinarily transparent. Like, you are out there for judging, but so are you when you're in an intimate moment with someone that you're with. And I'm going to say you're with, because I don't know where this conversation is going. But however, there's that sense of exposure that you got to really be comfortable with in order to really fully experience the moment. And they're linked. And so, yes, I had to learn to love myself before I could really jump in here with both feet and put myself out there, my story out there, help people from the most authentic place possible.
Wonderful. Excellent. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'll be looking for the video because she sends me the links in the videos. He
gets the previews.
So, all right. I am keeping y'all on edge. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm being intentional about waiting for the topic to start, because that's just stuff that I do. I'm rude like that sometimes, I guess. But
amen and amen again.
Nah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's jump in. First,
I love you.
Let's start with this. Michelle always gets on me about the triangle. So where would this be on the no love triangle? This would be, all right, so you have the foundation, which is self-interest. You have the left side going up on the triangle. That would be selflessness. And then this would be the last side, the self-evolution aspect of the no love triangle. Dating, relationship, marriage, and the completion of the actual triangle, which will keep the actual circle going on habitually and just growing in that order. So self-interest is the foundation. Selflessness is the portion when you find someone that you feel has gained or succeeded at being chosen. And then after you make that choice and you get chosen in return, which that particular side helps with that, then self-evolution would be the place where we're at. So this is where this would land at, the self-evolution aspect, and you'll hear more about that in a moment. But let's dive in. So the first, since we're talking about foundation, like I said, the first foundational thing that I would present when it comes to sex is that sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing. I'm gonna say that again. Sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing. And I'm clearly going to elaborate on what I mean by that and prove it, but I need that to be understood, because if you don't get the fact that sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing, you're always going to have problems with sex. So we have to start here. Sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing. And how I'm going to all right, so the physical aspect is the physical expression of a mental experience. And again, I'm gonna go more in depth on what that means, but I can't stress that statement enough. Sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing. It just happens to at its climactic place become a physical thing that is an expression of a mental experience. Okay, so I'm gonna start with that, and the way I'm gonna help you realize that is for those who have already partaken in this experience. You can easily think about a time back when, or with a previous partner, or even your current partner, whereby sex was great in the beginning and then it just sucked. For some reason, it was not good anymore. It was great in the beginning. It's like, what happened? We used to be going at it and sex was amazing. It was wonderful. And then for some strange reason, it stopped being good. I'm confident in saying that the sex didn't change. Matter of fact, more than likely what you'll learn later is it's probably because it didn't change that it started to suck. But that is only to prove that it's not a physical pleasure, it's a mental pleasure. It's in the beginning, you two were into each other mentally, or you were new to each other mentally, which in turn, through that imagination and what it is that you said about that person up until that point, it made sex pleasurable. So again, to help you wrap your mind around sex is not a physical thing, it's a mental thing. Just think about the time where you were having sex with that person and it was great in the beginning and all of a sudden it sucked. And that might very well be you right now. We're going to address that within this actual topic, but the reason why that happened, I'll go into more detail, is multiple things. Is because something mentally shifted, not the physicality. What you all were doing stayed the same, and you enjoyed it, you loved it, but now it sucks for some reason. So where did that come from? I'm glad that you asked. A good example, and this is it's funny because I hear people give this advice, but they don't even know the depth of the truth of the advice. So I'm going to go into the depth of the advice that is given. I hear people say, especially at weddings, do what you did to get them in order for you to keep them. Do what you did to get them in order to keep them. And what they typically are saying when they speak about it is the surface level things. You open the door for her, or you cook for him, or whatever those things were to get them is what caused you to get them, and that's what you need to do to sustain or maintain them. Now, that is a #9 statement, but not in the manner in which it's typically presented. And I'm gonna tell you what it should mean and how you do that and succeed at it. Now, this is a very common issue that I have with married couples. The sex is not good anymore. And I've had people who literally have told me it's because of he or she let themselves go. I'm not interested in them anymore. I don't look at them like that and things of that nature. So literally, this is what I make them do for that next few weeks. And please follow me when I say this. I know I'm kind of taking you on a little journey here, but it's necessary for what we're talking about. When you first start dating or being in a relationship with someone, you're saying stuff about them in your mind. Man, she looking sexy. Man, he look good in that suit. Man, she's this. Man, he's that. Oh my gosh, I can't wait till I get home. I'm gonna do this. Oh my goodness, when she wears that, I'm gonna do this. Oh, I love that smell of whatever. I love that lotion that she's wearing. You are saying a whole bunch of things about that person in your mind. And when people have issues with sex, when they come to me, the first thing that I make them do is pay attention to their thoughts, which we don't typically do. I force them to take a journal or reading of their thoughts as time passes so that they can realize that their mental statements about that person has changed. And then when I help them realize how you start saying, ugh, when she take off her clothes, I'm not feeling that. That's what you're saying in her mind. Oh my gosh, why he always sitting like that in that chair? Oh, I hate when he eat like that. This is what you're saying in your mind. Your mind's eye matches exactly what it is that you're thinking, which in turn causes you not to be into them anymore. And the sex begins to suck. Now, that's not the only reason why sex sucks, but because we're talking about how sex is a mental thing, what happens is I make them realize it, and they realize, they'll come to me, I promise, within a week. They're like, yo, I did not realize how much terrible stuff or negative stuff I was saying about my mate. And I say, that's cool. It's not uncommon. It happens. But now what I want you to do, now that you realize how much you are saying that, I want you, when you catch yourself saying it, to intercept that thought and replace it with a good one. And I've literally had people say, so what you want? You want me to brainwash myself? And I'm like, yes, because that's exactly what you did when you first started with them. You were brainwashing yourself. Oh my gosh, she's the sexiest woman in the world. He's the finest man in the world. He's so sexy. I love when he touched me. I love when whatever. Oh my gosh, if he gets any closer, I'm gonna explode. If whatever. You're saying all of these things in your head. So now you have to pay attention to what you're saying, intercept the negative ones, and replace them. It's gonna feel weird at first, but as you continuously intercept the negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts that you would prefer to think or see, your mind's eye will begin to match it. Again, I can't stress, and I know how crazy this may sound. It sounds crazy, but I promise you, sex is a mental thing. It's not a physical thing. I have to stay at this foundational premise before we move forward, but sex is a mental thing. It's not a physical thing. And then we're going to transition. But go ahead, Michelle, because you've written down a few things, and I don't want to go to the next topic until we kind of talk. And even those who are listening, because there's multiple people that are watching right now who aren't saying anything. So if you have any feedback or you want to share anything, I know it's a sensitive topic. You don't want to be looked at as, I don't know about this or whatever. I'm glad that you're watching. And hopefully, without you sharing, I'm going to address any thoughts, questions, or concerns you have before this show is out. So please feel free to share, comment, respond to anything that I've said thus far. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just thinking that where you were saying that it's a mental thing, which I 100% agree. It's an aspect of it that it is a huge component of success or failure, right? Or connection or non-connection is really what I'm saying. But there's levels to it. Like you're gradually attracted to somebody, or you're chemically or physically attracted to somebody before you know any attributes to even describe to them or have any scripts in your head. It's after you see what you like and you start projecting, right? So you investigate. But I also, what came to my mind was there's also times when you wake up from what you projected and have to truly evaluate whether what you projected was accurate or what you made up, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a clash at some point. And I say that because I'm divorced, right? So there was an effort during that process to be grateful for what I had, to maybe shift and say, well, maybe it's me, and let me look at this person and see them a different way and do that kind of stuff. But then there's that part where you may wake up from the attributes you're looking at and see them for what they are, and they're not changing, and then you have to make different decisions. And it's all wrapped. Sex makes it messy. This is why we probably shouldn't do it till you have done some investigating, because sex makes the projection and the reality, when they crash and you're already in this physical connection, it gets messy. But I know we're going to talk on that, but it's messy.
Okay. Brittany McCarter said that's why it's always good at first. Then you start realizing things about people and you get turned off. I believe it jumped in as well. Oh my gosh. When you get to a place where you break up with somebody, you know, you like, I didn't even know he had that mole right there. It's like, you start noticing every little petty or what
it was always there though. It was always there.
Like,
it was
always there. Again, your mind's eye made them flawless. And by no means am I saying like certain moles are beautiful. But I'm just using that as an example as to what people come to a conclusion about. She said, ha, ha, Brittany laughing. But it's real. When someone offends you, and this is what I mean by like, you should not marry a person until you all have had an argument or disagreement, because you don't really see them or see who they are, what they really think about you until that happens. But when things go wrong or go left, you start noticing all kinds of stuff.
It's hard to recover from stupid. It's hard to recover from stupid. Once somebody thinks that you dumb, you can't be cute no more.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but it is a mental thing. So I cannot stress how imperative it is to understand that sex is a mental thing. And to be perfectly honest with you, you should be having sex way before the physical aspect of it. That's what makes it great. And we're gonna go into it, but you should be having sex. The intimacy through your interaction should be what is starting and also moving throughout the entire process of the whole experience in the first place. So if you're not having sex mentally before you haven't really. I'm gonna go off on a tangent. So I'm gonna let me bring it back in, because this is I love this topic and I love this experience. So I'm gonna keep it at a teaching setting here, but I can easily go off on a tangent. So let's go to the shift. We've stressed that sex is a mental thing. That is the foundation. Like, you really have to grasp and understand that. The examples that I gave to explain how you can prove for yourself that sex is mental is the fact that you've had sex with people where it was great in the beginning and then it stopped being great, or it sucked, or it got and it's because your mental state about that particular person or situation had shifted, which in turn shifted the pleasure or the sensation of
your mental space about yourself could change too. So
you said what?
Your mental space about yourself could change as well, and that could, like, whatever it is, but you could feel some kind of way about you and project that on them, and it's not their fault and they didn't do nothing, but you've changed. That's
very true. That it could be guilt. It could even be the thought of someone that you prefer to be there as opposed to who you're with. It's a whole bunch of things. Again, this is not going to be that show, but we will eventually have that show. But we want to talk about foundational things that are understood when it comes to this thing called sex. Let's go to the second part. All right. So sex that's not influenced by love won't be pleasurable for too long. I'm going to say that again. Sex that's not influenced by love won't be pleasurable for too long. Now, be mindful. I'm not sure if you're new to listening to No Love or if you are a person who's been consistent, but when we talk about love, love is not a two-way street. It is a one-way street. It is to give and give and give without seeking anything in return. That is a selfless act. It's a selfless act. It is an expression to show someone that you care about them, that you care about them, not for them to do something in return. To do something for someone with the expectations of getting something in return is manipulation. It's not love. Love is a one-way street. Now, the reason why I say sex that's not influenced by love won't be pleasurable for long is because if it's not with the intent of love, which is that one-way street to actually please or pleasure that person, it is a selfish act. And anyone who is doing anything in the bedroom that's selfish, because it starts off that person is interested and into you, the sex is going to be good in the beginning. Because remember, their mental state towards you is I like this person. I want to share this with that person. I want to give this with that person. But once they conclude by your actions, and more than likely your premature finish, that you are selfish and you're only about yourself, they're not going to be interested anymore. And that is going to alter or shift the actual experience. Before I dive into how it should be and the benefits of coming from a love influence, because this one is about to start getting like, yo, I'm salivating over here. This one is about to get good, but I saw you write, so I want you to share. But
I'm trying to make sure you're able to get your full thought out before I can get it in there. But what I heard, what feels good is different from what is good. So what feels good is insatiable because you're constantly trying to get this feeling and you're chasing some sort of high. But what is good can be sustained because it is, like you said, a further expression of something that's always going on. And it's mental, it's emotional, it's a conversation that really never ends, because if I'm not horizontal, I'm vertical. And if I'm not vertical and I'm distant, then I'm connected. So it's a conversation that's continuing, and you can sustain that level of engagement. But what feels good, if you're just chasing what feels good, it's not sustainable and it's insatiable.
That's good. That's good. And that's why it's imperative, which we're about to dive in now. I'm rubbing my hands together. When you have someone who loves you and you love them, and if you all are expressing love in a manner in which we just defined, where we're giving to please that other person, not necessarily please ourselves, you two are both doing the same thing. It becomes a competition in the bedroom because I am trying my best to please you and you are trying your best to please me. Let me read what Brittany said before I go in, because I'm about to go into this. Said, if you aren't looking to please one another in the bedroom, that's not good at all. It can't be, let me get mine. That's not cool. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I mean.
And that's typically an extension of the way you're living your life anyway. Like if you're bedroom that's how you are outside of it.
That's why I stated that it won't be pleasurable for long. In the beginning, it will be, because y'all both doing your thing and you're getting your release because they're helping, because their mental state is assisting in you getting, and them getting off and you getting off. It's their mental that's helping you, not you doing your thing. But we're gonna. I got other responses. Says selfishness, no love turns into give me versus I want you to just please my partner. No love. Brittany said, "Preach, girl." That's right. So, all right. So let's get into this. So, if you are going into this this lovemaking or sex with the intent or in the influence being love, you now, because you are interested in pleasing this person, become a student of this person's body. You become a student of what is it that is necessary to please this individual or get them to that place that I want to get them to. That is when you become a very, very strategic and intentional student of the body in which you are now working hard to please. Okay? And they are really having a lot of conversations there. Girl, I'm ready to go in on this one here. All right, says Steela J. Okay.
I have to write it down so I can let him get his thought out.
All right, so when you approach sex with the mentality of love or the influence of love, your sole intent is to please that person, which in turn makes you a student of their body and how they're responding to what it is that you're doing to and for them, okay? And because you become that student, now you begin to get to a place where, I'm gonna put it to you like this. If you become such a student, it should be easy for you to get that person to their climactic place because you've studied them well enough to know exactly what it is that they need or whatever spot that needs to be hit in order for them to get to where they want to go. And vice versa with your partner. Now, this is where I meant by I might get a little vivid, and I have to make it understood so that we can get to where, first and foremost, all right, so because there's people that have had multiple partners. So when I say become a student, because I know there's so many people like, yo, I'm nice at this, so I know what I'm doing or whatever. First and foremost, I can't stress to you enough that everyone is an individual. So though you're dealing with same parts, you might be dealing with different preferences. And I can't stress that enough. So you cannot go into this thing called sex with the
playing
things
the same
that
song on every instrument. You can't play the same song on every instrument. They each have a different tone. Okay?
You cannot. You cannot take what you've learned from someone else's body and bring it to this body because you've concluded that they have the same parts. You are to be a very astute student to that person's body and paying attention to how they respond to what it is that you're doing to them. And what I'm saying is, all right, case in point, if someone says right there, you should not go the other way. But the only reason why you're going the other way when they say right there is because you haven't been paying attention to where you're at.
Well, you think you're right.
Or you get so excited that you finally got a good response that now you're just going crazy in a certain place. No, you need to be focusing on where you are in that moment because your intent is to please that person. So if they say like that or right there, you should not be shifting. You should be concentrating on that particular place so that you could get them where your intention is to get them, and vice versa. Now I got some preachers, some say that, some stay there, some all kinds of situations going on. But if you are focused on doing what your intent is, which is to express love, and at this point, when we're talking about sex, we're at a place where the words that you say are not adequate enough to express what it is that you're feeling for that person. So I need to express in this form of communication where I'm at in my body, in my spirit, and my presence with you physically in hopes that you feel what it is that I'm feeling for you at this moment. But you have to stay focused on the task at hand and understand where deeper is or that way is or wherever that is, wherever that request is, you should be able to duplicate that because you've been focusing and intentional about what it is that you're doing. Go ahead, Michelle, because I'm about to go off on a tangent and I'm trying to. Okay.
Without
I got people saying, don't move, darn it. I got exactly.
I was right there, right? Like I was right there. Like keep going, keep going.
Know thyself first. Go ahead.
There's so many layers to this, right? So your intensity is honorable, and I say that because it's from a female standpoint. The way that you are approaching this and intensely focusing on pleasure and giving as a receiver. Anatomically, as a receiver, there's a certain openness that comes from laying it out like that. And it's why sometimes we fall for nonsense because we fall for the story or even the symphony that they play on your body. You start to attribute that to who they are because they've learned how to be a student of the anatomy, but they haven't studied your spirit. They haven't studied who you are. So you're talking about trying to have a mental intimacy, and you got me out my mind with the physical intimacy. Like I can't even think straight. So you think you're doing everything great, but I'm not even thinking straight. So I'm not giving you my mind because I'm giving you everything else, which is why it's kind of backwards. And again, I think that's a dangerous place for people who are needy. I'm not going to say it's just a woman. I know that there's from an anatomically receiving space, but if you are open in a way that you're looking for feelings to kind of fill the void that you can't get emotionally, you can find that this intensity that you're talking about can make me take me to a very dangerous space where I start to misconstrue love and feelings.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, and that's kind of, I've been there, done that, check, got the t-shirt.
and I'm seeing a lot of statements in a lot of truth. There should be, especially in the beginning, there should be a lot of communication going on. You should be focusing on the body language, but you definitely should be talking to one another and directing one another, so to speak. It's kind of like, what's a good analogy? Okay. When you first get a new hairdresser or hairstylist or barber, man, when when you first get them, they'll say, hey, they might tap your head or tell you to shift your head or use their hand to move your head to get you to be where you need to be. And then as time goes by, it's different taps. And you know to shift your head or move. Nothing said. It's an understanding. That's intimacy. We've been exchanging so much that it's just a simple movement, adjustment, tap, tone, or something of that nature, because you've been such an astute student and focus on your environment and experience that you know when to shift or move according to that particular person to accommodate what it is that they need from you. And again, and the fulfillment that comes from that, first and foremost, is typically the reciprocation, because they want to do it back for you. The one. Two, the fulfillment from getting a person to their climactic space is just that fulfillment in itself is better than the actual physical experience in the first place. And it will keep them coming back. That's the thing. Like, it will keep them coming back. Go ahead, Michelle. Oh, it was an amen. It was a silent amen. Okay. All right.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm sapiosexual, and I say that because it's a buzzword, but it's accurate. Mentally, because I'm creative and I like to think, and there's having mental intimacy and having that exchange, like you said, that intuitive exchange where you're on the same page, there's an alignment and there's an affirmation and a give and a take, and it's a back and a forth, and it ultimately ends up in creativity. Ultimately, it will result in creating something. That's the orgasmic moment of, oh my God, look what we've created, whether it's an idea or something like that. Energy is intoxicating, right? So having that on top of what you're saying is where the real magic. And I think that one of the things that we can get sidetracked is getting so mind boggled by the physical feelings. Like you're saying, like I get this reaction and I want to do that again, and I want to do that again, and I want to do that again. And then you're saying, as you said earlier, sex starts to suck when you've played that game so long and hit that moment so many times, and there wasn't any residual intimacy. Like, it's like I go to sleep afterwards and I'm done.
Yeah. But
with mental intimacy, you can remunerate on it for a long time, because what you created has reduced growth. And like there's growth in you, and that's what, like, one of the things that strikes me about this conversation in the triangle is that what you said earlier was to keep doing what you did to get them, but in the triangle, it's like keep moving along the triangle, like keep being new. Like don't learn my body so much and you think that you got it all, because you don't know. I might shift a little.
Yeah.
I might do something different this time. Yeah.
And that's exactly what I meant by, like, you being so intimate when you see that, okay, so she's adjusted this way. This is what she wants right now. It doesn't necessarily have to be said. I can tell that this is what she wants according to the way that she adjusted or maneuvered her body. But it's not until you become a student of that body that you can respond to it accordingly. Let me read some of these comments here. You can't possibly be intimate with someone you can't effectively communicate with. I agree with you. We're headed there. Whoa. I don't even know what that means. I'm kind of scared. You have to be in tune with each other, and that can only be done through communication. That's exactly right. So we have
to be in tune with each other for what?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to the intent. It has to be the intent. It has to be intent. I'm all for the mental stimulation for one part of sex or intimacy. Elaborate, please, Charlene, so I can respond accordingly. But while you're doing that, I'm going to transition to the third aspect. All right. So and we've been alluding to it, but I want to address it. Your mind needs to be stimulated to keep it from boredom. your mind has to always be stimulated. It has to always be stimulated. And what I mean by that is why and how we talked about the last part of the triangle is self-evolution. Why is self-evolution so important? The same reason why this chapter in my book is called Remain the Same and Lose the Flame. Okay, so we all have had our favorite song. I don't know what your favorite song is now. You probably have a favorite song now. We've had that song that was so amazing. You couldn't believe how everything came together. You knew the instruments when they would come in. You knew all the ad-libs. If you were about to get fired for being late, that song was so good, you probably would possibly lose your job because you got to finish this song and turn it all the way up before you go into that building because it came on before you got into the building. You just love that song. You love everything about it. But ultimately, that favorite song stops being a favorite song. And the reason why that favorite song stops being a favorite song, or you find another favorite song, is because that favorite song never changes. As I stated before, you know everything about the song. You know the ad-libs. You know when the instrument comes in. You know the breakdown. You know the hook. You know everything about the song. And the same thing works when it comes to this thing called sex in the person's mind. Our minds need stimulation. They need newness. That's why you keep coming back to the show to see what's going to happen next. You want to see and feel what's going to happen next. And if you, the partner, remain the same exact person, not even necessarily just when it comes to sex, but you not evolving into a new song of a person, not changing to a different person, but evolving as a new person, or a newer person, or the best you that you can be, i.e. self-help, spirituality, health, anything of that nature, you will become that same song. And in their mind, oh, I know what he about to do now. Oh, I know what she about, go ahead and do that. I know. And that is when your mind starts to say things like, this is trash. Go ahead and finish. I got to go do some laundry anyway. Go ahead. And it's just a frustrating state of being. Hold on, I got a #9. Your mind has to always be stimulated to avoid boredom. Change to a new sexy song. You have to. You must. It is imperative, or else your relationship is going to die. The minute that they know everything there is to know about you, which is why you should be adding new things to you, is the minute that your relationship, your sex, your interaction, everything is going to start going downhill because the mind has to maintain stimulation. It has to, or else it starts to die, and you start to die literally, physically. You start to die, and everything is going downhill from there. I see you thinking. Go ahead, Michelle. Share your thoughts.
My thoughts are that as right now we're focusing on like being a receiver, and so this person needs to, and this person needs to. And I'm thinking about just reflecting on my life and how sometimes the loss of engagement was because it was an expectation of the other person to keep changing and to keep doing something different or whatever. But you have to keep bringing a different you to the table as well. Like, it's not a one-sided thing.
We're not
like
talking
you said,
about
it's a one-way.
Everybody is the
right.
individual.
Right. So it's definitely both people, and we both have to. I think that goes back to one of the things we said in the previous was you gotta miss each other a little bit.
Exactly.
You know, like, can I get it? And come back like with stories to tell. So you are like engaging. But can we talk about? You know how somebody starts seducing you in the morning, and you by the time you get home, this is all like just doing things. It's not touching you. It's just doing things. There's a way to kind of create this desire through the course of the day, which is the mental. So can you talk a little bit about the value of that and what that is and what makes that work?
Well, that's what I was actually headed to. Like that's what intimacy is. And intimacy is learning about someone. So if you're not at a place where I can continuously learn about you, there's no more intimacy. Intimacy is into me see. But once I've already saw everything in
you got to go back and say that again. Intimacy
is into me see. I am seeing into you. Once I've seen everything, you're no longer a person that I'm having intimacy with because there's nothing else to see. I'm not interested anymore. You have lost your interest and your intrigue and your ability to stimulate my mind, which is stimulating my body, which is what's helping me to release when I'm interacting with you. Let me read this statement. A continuous evolution of self repeatedly sparks new interest from the other person, which in turn keeps intimacy fresh. That's exactly right, Tila. That's exactly what I just basically stated and broke down. So it is the intimacy that you offer, which is newness, that makes them interested in you and keeps the sex great because you're someone that's new. That's why sex is great in the beginning, because you are the beginning of you to them. So they're learning about you. And sex is amazing because there's intimacy. I'm learning about you. We're growing. So now I'm interested in you. Oh, that's so sexy. Oh, I learned this about her. But once you learn and once you know, you can't unknow. So you need to give me something else to know so I can continue to learn and know you. And that's why if you're evolving as a person, I'm consistently learning in the bedroom who you are and how to accommodate this new being. And that's what makes sex amazing. Go ahead, Michelle.
There are I'm going to say what I grew up about. There are people who don't expect sex to be amazing after a certain point. They think it's just comforting and it's rudimentary and it's obligation. And so, and okay, like I'm just being honest, that there's an expectation that during the courtship and the newness of it, that it's supposed to be, yay, I'm like, my hair's on fire. And then after that, it kind of tanks down into, we're married, it's normal, it's a routine. And then it starts to be treated like a routine, like you're saying, right? And so it's almost, it wanes, it just gets boring. But I think that what we're also saying is that in that intimate relationship, that's a long-term relationship, because there's honesty, that's different. When you're thinking of it as a short-term relationship, you can burn hot and fast because you're thinking, I don't have to do this for 35 years. And you can give it all this energy, and then you know that, well, I'm about to change shoes and move on to a new partner. So that's different than what we're talking about, which is this long-term investment of time, effort, and energy. And that if you don't give that as much effort and energy as you give the rest of your life, it does tend to just go, well, you're supposed to, or this is what we're supposed to do, or I have to. And then that's when you get this itch.
Well, and that's exactly it. And that's why people typically have to have multiple partners in order for them to enjoy, because they've learned the partner. And now it's like, I want something new because I've learned everything about this.
Or they've disconnected the mental part from the physical part, right? So they learn how to play all that stuff, and then they separated the two. So I'm done with that.
That's what I'm saying. So, and then we go back to that part of the selfishness is because, and it's always good in the beginning, which is why you need something new, because after a while, that person learns everything about you and you have nothing else to offer. So it's not good for them. And that's when it starts to transition to where the sex is not good. So what happens is, remember we were talking in the beginning, and I stated that sex is good in the beginning and then it gets bad because it's a mental thing. All right, so if sex is good in the beginning and sex gets bad after a while, one of three things happen. One of three. Either you stop growing as a person, they stop growing as a person, or both of you stop growing as persons. And both of you have gotten to that place where you know everything there is to know about them and they're no longer interesting. So because of that, the sex has turned to trash. The intimacy is gone. You have no more depth. You are shallow. I've learned everything about you. in this however period of time, depending on how interested or intrigued this person has been in their approach to learn you, it took them that long to learn everything that they need or will know about you. And in turn, it has ruined their mental thought process about you, and the sex has gotten bad. Go ahead, Michelle.
So I'm just reflecting. There's also a scenario where it can get bad when the trust has been broken. And that doesn't necessarily mean an affair. It could be that there was an offense or there was something, some line in the sand that was crossed that has caused you to see them differently, which it may or may not be discussed. It should be discussed if we're being healthy and open and honest, of course. But if there's an offense that continued to happen and it grew into something that became really annoying, and so there's just something that's just turned off, or it's an offense that is just an offense and you're just now physically there's a barrier there, like that's not growing. That's
No,
an
it's
issue.
not growing, but it's still a mental state.
It is a mental state, but like I'm saying, like you said, one of three things is either they stop growing, you stop growing, or you both stop growing. And I'm saying that also could be added to that is if an offense takes place, and that maybe that maybe I'm growing and I grew into something you didn't like, which made you feel offended, but now you're it's kind of like we talked about it once before, like
now we're talking about self-esteem and insecurities.
Yeah,
still a mental state.
I agree that they're all mental states. I agree that all of this happens in the mind first. But I'm just saying that there's, in addition to the growth issue, there's offense issues that still, and again, I do believe we create conspiracy theories. Like we will have an offense that we've turned into a life story. Like they just woke up and their intent was to hurt me when they made a mistake. Like we will write that story in our head and turn it into, I don't want you to ever touch me again as long as you live. Like, but you might be inaccurate. You might be right. You might be wrong. You didn't even ask. Yeah. So you kind of put yourself in a situation. But what I'm saying is,
in a healthy relationship, whereby nothing happened tragic or an offense has taken place, whereby the sex was great, and I stated earlier, like I don't understand what happened. It was great, and then automatically it shifted. One of those three things have more than likely occurred. You all have gotten to a place where the intimacy has stopped, whether it be one-sided or reciprocated, where you both know everything about each other and there's nothing new about you. And again, I'm not saying that you need to change who you are. I'm saying you need to become the best you that you can be on a consistent basis, which would make you new.
Your best life.
You should not be able to still fit your baby clothes. You should be growing. So there should be some type of change and newness to you on a continual basis. Otherwise, you've technically died, but you're just walking and existing. So I got another one. I have a fourth one that I want to address before we get off this topic for today. And again, we can go. Again, we have to talk about a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to sex. There's a whole bunch, but these are kind of foundational and necessary things that you need to be mindful of so that you can be intentional about preventing these blind spots from causing issues in your relationship, or being intentional about applying these things so that you will have better or great experiences. But the last one is necessary because it's something that all people, and I mean all, and I typically don't use words that don't leave room for, well, like I don't typically use absolutes, but in this case I am, and I have to stress that everyone wants to feel desired. Everyone wants to feel wanted. If you are always the one that someone is initiating sex with, you're putting the other person in a very vulnerable spot when someone wants to initiate it with them. Because everyone wants to feel desired or wanted. So if you are always the one that has to wait until he starts or wait until she starts, you are really, really putting a damper on your relationship, and you're really, really making your partner feel like they are not wanted or desired. It's like, I can only get it when I initiate it. That is not a good feeling. It does not make you make you feel wanted at all. Please, if you are in that type of relationship, take the time to find the confidence to initiate some type of sex. Do not let the other person always initiate the sex. That is the worst. And I promise you, they're crying out, whether they say it or not, they're crying out to feel desired. And again, you are opening up a serious and vulnerable window for that person that is going to, because if you have a good man or a good woman, I promise you, somebody wants them. That's why you wanted them. And you are putting them in a predicament where when that person is always trying to come at them, it's like, she never comes at me like that.
Desired and it's not appreciated. Desired and appreciated are different. Like, I can appreciate you, and I tell you thank you all the time, and I take care of you, and that's not desired. It's not the same thing. No,
I'm talking about initiating the actual sexual experience. You use your imagination. You do whatever it is that you need to do, but you should be initiating. And it's not, well, I just wore this sexy whatever. He gets it. No. I'm talking about touch him, touch her,
touch me, touch.
Initiate the actual experience. If you're not initiating, I promise you, I'm speaking for them right now. They are crying for the want to feel desired.
And if you haven't done it, they met your first reaction. Don't let that deter you, because they might be like, "What?" But you just stick with the stay in the game. Stay in the game.
Keep going. Because, and interestingly enough, that response is going to make them feel a little
what's different? What's going on? Why is this? What's different?
Yeah. And which is evident that you don't do it enough or at all. So please don't allow for your mate to feel like they're not desired. You need to initiate sex. Please, male or female, those who are offended by the word female, man or woman, whatever you want to, that's a whole nother conversation. But if you're not that one, please, again, it's not really much I can say about it outside of you're really, really putting your mate in a vulnerable state, because someone's going to hit on them, and someone's going to want them. And the way that this society is, there's no shame in people's game at all. And if they're not getting or feeling wanted or desired, it does feel good to want to get desired or feel desired by someone. I think they just had that whole situation about what Steph Curry's wife. She technically everybody
else are looking at him.
It would be nice.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice to be. It would be nice to be looked at. People want to feel desired, and who should make that person feel more desired than you? So I'm gonna briefly touch on everything that we discussed. We're gonna hear Michelle's final thoughts. I don't see too many more comments here, but initially we have to understand that sex is a mental thing, not a physical thing. If you want more in-depth explanation as to what that means, you need to listen to the beginning of the show, because this is the summary. Secondly, sex that's not influenced by love won't be pleasurable for long. That is for you selfish folk. That's why you have to have multiple partners, because you're running out of intimacy, which in turn has you figured out they're not interested anymore, so the sex is not good because they're not mentally into you, because of how you're always about self when you're coming across the person in the bedroom. So if you come from a place of love, that automatically will force you to be a student of the body in which you are taken care of, so that you can get them to a place of pleasure, because your intent is to show them pleasure and that you love them, which in turn, when people are doing that together, it becomes a bedroom of competition where you're both trying to out pleasure each other because you're so into one another, and the fulfillment that comes from that is way better than the physical experience. I promise you that. I promise you that. And it also keeps them coming back. Then we have your mind needs stimulation. It has to always be stimulated. You cannot have the same things going on over and over again, and things that are redundant. Things need to be new. So this does not mean that you need to necessarily do a whole bunch of new stuff in the bedroom, but you can start by becoming a new and better you, which in turn will bring some new stuff to the bedroom. Not even necessarily physically, but their mental state about you will bring that intimacy, will bring the newness to the experience that is going on in the bedroom. Now, you can add some things to the bedroom. Not going to go into that in this show, but but I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad. So that can be, so newness is good as well, whether it be physically or mentally, but newness is a definite. And then lastly, as we discussed, everyone, and I mean everyone, there's no one in this world that's going to say, I don't want to be wanted. Everyone wants to feel desired. Do not, and I repeat, and I stress, and I plead for the person that is experiencing this, because they're not going to say it typically. Everyone wants to feel desired. Please initiate. Be an initiator sometimes. And I don't mean just, hey, well, I came out, I ain't had no clothes on. No, I want you to take hold of the situation. Initiate, touch them, do whatever it takes to actually start the actual the encounter or experience. Michelle?
So I'm not married. However, all of this was very valuable, even in my current situation, where I do have a relationship that is satisfying a lot of these notes, right? And it's not physical. And I say that because sex is so much more. It's about intimacy.
Yeah.
And I would say that there's every aspect, and I say that, for example, there's intimacy in the encouragement to continue to evolve, and the sharing of that information, and knowing that somebody is supporting you and being on that same page, and that's something that they care and want to, and they desire to hear what you have to say. They desire to spend time with you and know what's new about you. There's like you said, there's a giving and constantly wanting to give. There's a place that you can get when you love yourself, where you're not looking for this other person to do anything. You're full as a person. You're engaged in your life. You're enjoying your life, and you don't mind giving, because it's not about transaction. It's not about getting it back. And all of this is kind of laying the foundation for a more physical situation. Because again, this is the pre-work. So I'm not in the same stage. I'm not in a relationship where I am focused on the physical expression of love. However, I am in the emotional or relational expression of love, which is there's levels to this. There's levels to this. And the physical interaction is a level, typically one of the peak levels, right? Because it's very tactile. You can feel and experience it. However, again, having grown over the past probably 2 to 3 years to understand how valuable, because I shortcut it, right? So I've done the shortcut and gone from chemical to physical to trying to be intellectual and intimate, and then trying to make a relationship afterwards, right? So I started on and went that route. But I've also now can see that there's true value in being patient enough to lay the foundation of the emotional connection that has the same attributes of intimacy and continuous evolution and self-awareness, and being able to be that transparent with somebody with your clothes on. Like, that's not as easy as it sounds. Being that open so that somebody, when you say over there, for example, I'm just going to take it the same thing you said. So if I say take it, do a little to the right, well, can we talk about this subject a little more? And the person being willing to let me deep dive into this because they actually desire to hear what I have to say builds trust. And that trust can translate and bleed over into other areas. But I can tell you that I didn't know how this felt when I was trying to come at it from the back end of the chemical, the physical. Are we physically attracted to each other? Ooh, now we should date. Ooh, I just love looking in your eyes. Oh my God, he's so fine. Ooh, let's, do the dance. And then are we going to do this for 20 years? Are we going to do like this? It gets old because, what are we doing?
Yeah.
like where are we? What are we building? What's the empire that we're building? What's coming out of this? So with sex, typically what comes out of that is a baby. What you create is a baby. But what are you building around that? Is the life that you're building. So again, I'm not married, so I'm hearing this whole conversation from a different side. It's equally as valuable. I 100% agree with the triangle. I work the triangle out in my life in other ways other than romantic. And I find it equally as satisfying. That's not to say I'm not romantic and then the person that I'm talking about is not fine. But anyway, let me come and bring it back.
Well,
you see what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah. Well, I was about to elaborate and give it an actual name. What Michelle just actually described, because I'm a reader. I practice what I teach. As some people say, practice what they preach. But I am a self-evolution. I'm always reading. Probably read about
moving.
two to three books a week. But what I meant, and I kind of shared or alluded to what you said earlier, that the fulfillment that you get from helping someone is probably just as good or even better than the actual physical experience itself, that fulfillment. But to put a name to what she just described is called sexual transmutation. It is to take the sexual experience and transmute it, meaning change it into a different energy and
apply that energy in other areas of your life
and have that same exact experience, or use the same energy that we use for sex in the imagination to create and procreate in the experience or exchange between another person or in business. So what she's saying is not, because I know we probably got people that's listening like, what? No, that ain't the same. No, it really is the same thing. And it starts from the beginning of this actual conversation that sex is mental. You should be having sex way before you have sex. And if you don't understand what that means, you need to re-listen to this whole podcast multiple times to understand what it is that I'm saying, because you should have sex way before the physical aspect of sex, or else the sex is not good. And that's how I
am over sex right now. That's all I'm saying. I'm like tired. I want to take a nap.
So with that being said, I can't stress to you all how, for one, fun this is a very fun show. A lot of comments, a lot of responses, people responding to one another. Probably the most engaging conversations that we've had. Clearly, you all have been waiting for this. Please comment on anything that you want me to go, because we're definitely going to go more in depth on this topic. But this is just foundational stuff that needs to be understood if you want to do this right, because people are just not doing sex right. And this is one of the reasons why marriage and the relationships between persons and mates are not working well, because of this topic right here. And I just refuse to not talk about it. I know we've been alluding to this particular topic, but we finally got to the actual topic. Just to start, this is the tip of the iceberg. If you can't tell by listening to this particular show, this is a passion of mine. I love this topic. I love the experience of this topic.
That's all I'm saying.
But we have to do this right so that you can do it more frequently and for it to be an enjoyable aspect of your particular relationship. I can't stress how much I appreciate you all taking valuable time. One of the most important things in the world to me is time. So for you all to sit with us for an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half, and just give us your minds and time the way that you all do, I truly appreciate I appreciate it. And I promise you that I don't take this platform lightly. And my intent is for us to just produce persons who love on purpose and not by chance, intentionally go into love. This is a mental thing. We think it's a haphazard emotional thing, and it really is not, because it is our minds that dictate how we feel. And once we get a hold of it and we understand it, we can duplicate and recreate it.
That was a #9 and a profound statement that makes all of this make sense. Our minds dictate how we feel.
Yeah, and it's the truth. It's our minds that determine we're mad, we're happy, we're in love. It starts with our mind. Remember how I stated in the beginning, people that come to me with issues with sex and things of that nature, I make them analyze or pay attention to their thoughts. I immediately shift their mind. This company is called Know Love, KNOW LOVE. I love that shirt, by the way. Where did you get it? That was a great shirt. That's a lovely shirt. I see you with the merch on, but it's called Know Love, meaning understand it, know it, so that you can experience and then have an encounter with it, because you know it for yourself, so that when it comes to you and it's not really what it is, you can call it out, get rid of it, and move on until you find the person that actually is the epitome, or they align with what love is. So you all are amazing. You all are my form of intimacy, and it's fulfilling to get the responses that I get from you all. And I'm going to continue.
Tell the truth. He talks about y'all all the time. He talks about y'all all the time.
I'm going to continue to keep my well full. I will continue to evolve and grow in this space called love. And as I grow, I will continue to pour into you all so that we can grow and take over this world with this thing called love, because love conquers everything. With that being said, until we meet again, I can't stress, I appreciate your minds and time. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night.